I was 16, I wanted to do something business related. So like any 16-year-old that wants to get into business, I started a clothing brand. It wasn't the biggest venture ever, but I was able to sell hundreds of shirts to multiple different states and even internationally as well. So it was a great opportunity. But none of that shirt selling compares to that one big deal I was able to close that I didn't know was coming. Today I wanted to talk about that somewhat recent story, what I learned from it, and how it changed my perspective on business. But before I get into it, I'm Isaac Jarnigan, entrepreneur, content creator, and podcaster out of Ames, Iowa. I try to document my life as best as possible, scaling a business, getting better at photo, video, and just having a good time. So I'd love to steer you to the links below. Connecting with me, would love to have a conversation with you. January 24th, 2019, around the time that I got my first A- sophomore year of high school, I was ready to be different is what I told myself. I wanted to do something. I wanted to try something else. I was tired of living in the system of life that I felt like I was in. Just telling you how I felt at the time. I don't know how exactly true it all was. But my first thing that I felt like I had passion towards and felt like I could make a difference in was making clothes. Not like stitching them together, literally just printing stuff on a shirt. Nothing crazy, but that was my first venture. It was called Mundane Clothing. I invested $300. I asked my parents if that was a good idea, and I'm surprised they didn't turn me away because that would have been a third or around a third of my bank account at the time. The concept of mundane clothing was mundane with a line through it. Mundane meaning boring, ordinary, everyday life. And you know, I wanted to like break the pattern. Like it doesn't have to be mundane if you don't want it to be. You know, you can make it whatever you want out of it. That was the concept I came up with at the time. So I made videos around it, took photos, got my friends to model for me, connected with other people around that time, and went full on at it. Revenue wise, this was a really small business. I maybe made a few thousand off of shirts. Mostly sold it to people locally in Iowa, but was able to attract some attention across the US and even got one international sale out of the United Kingdom, and that was just wild. Any minuscule amount of success that came from it came from, you know, my other social media audiences on TikTok, Instagram, all that. So it's just, I wasn't really prioritizing making a business out of it. I was just kind of having fun and learning at the time, but I was absolutely loving the process until what I would consider the conflict happened. All of my sales were generated online through mundaneclothing.com, which I bought right when I started and thought of the idea because I wanted to catch that up. You can get a domain for like 12 bucks a year at that time. And I swiped that thing up, made a Shopify website, made it all beautiful looking, and I was getting traffic through mundaneclothing.com. So much attention that it was actually conflicting with another business. I'm not gonna say the exact name. I don't even think it's a business anymore. I think I looked that up recently, but it was, we'll just say it had both mundane and clothing in the name, and it was in another state. And they had a very, very, very similar website name, just with a different ending. Anyways, got a very worded email from this individual representing this business saying that I'm infringing on their copyright, or however you want to say that. My business name was too close to their business name and I needed to change it or else there would be legal action. So at that age, I pretty much was stunned and even started bawling because I freaking loved that name. It was so confusing to me. How am I going to adapt if my name's gone? Is the brand gone? How am I going to make meaning out of my clothes? I mean, the name is what drove all the sales that I had. Anyways, I looked further into it, was on a call with both this older dude, and it's full funny because I'm 16 or 17 at the time, just talking with this older dude and this lawyer. My dad's with me, and I'm just sobbing the whole time quietly while listening that I have to get rid of this name. Don't quote me on this, but I think me and this business started within 3 months of each other. Them being a little more experienced, they got all the legal filing stuff out of the way. Me being me, I was more focused on the online presence and just starting and trying it. So all I was worried about was getting and securing that domain and all the social media handles. So I was not thinking of that at all. So they were in the right, I was in the wrong. Wanted to check to make sure, so I talked to a local lawyer. He said they're in the right, you were in the wrong. Probably want to avoid this at all costs. I said fine. I thought this was over, didn't think there was any pivoting away from this. I thought my days as a business owner were done until the opportunity arose. After agreeing to change my name, I realized something. Probably the reason they even came up to me wanting to change my name wasn't that they mind that I sold the shirts the way that I did, but they were interested in my domain name. I had the most perfect domain name for the mundane clothing name. I had mundaneclothing.com. They emailed me saying, hey, we'd love to buy your domain. How does $300 sound? Now, $300 is more than I sold any shirt for. I sold shirts from $20 to $80 if it was a nicer sweatshirt and, made maybe half that margin or whatever. Not a lot of money coming from each of those shirt sales with the volume I was getting. So $300 was a great sale that I could have gotten there. But I said, absolutely not. What about 8,000? I pulled that number right off the dome, and that was not the correct valuation of that, but I knew that they were undervaluing it, so it'd be good if I overvalued it with the counsel of my father, who is also not a professional, but he's done sales before, so he's trying to be like, let's stick it to him a little bit, show him that we know it's valuable. Anyways, obviously we're gonna pay 8 for it, but after months of negotiating, we agreed on $2,000 US. My first big sale and sum of money ever. The most sum of money I've ever seen was an $1,100 1-cent paycheck from when I was in the fields of Iowa detasseling, which is where you pick the tassel off the top of a corn plant. That was the biggest check I saw before. Besides that, all I saw were minimum wage weekly checks or whatever frequency it was, or just some of my shirt checks when I made, whatever, $80 or, sold a couple of shirts. So 2,000 was actually crazy to me at the time. So this domain that I just paid $12 a year for, after pushing some branding behind it, pushing some momentum through it, pushing it up the search engine rank, was now worth $2,000, according to me and this guy. And that also blew my mind. So we made the sale. Using that positive momentum that I got from that sale, I was able within 2 weeks to come up with a new brand name that I was just as hyped about, and even more hyped about actually, called Forward Motive. The goal of the brand was to find your motive or your reason in life and push forward toward it. It was just Forward Motive, and then the F had a little arrow at the top of it, which was kind of cool, and it was handwritten by me, just like Mundane Clothing. Mundane Clothing was written by Ben, but Forward Motive was handwritten by me. And I was able to push that brand just as hard with cooler branding, cooler photos, all of that, and just as hyped like I never left. It took me 2 weeks of hyped energy where it took me months to start Mundane Clothing because I knew the process. Looking back, this experience made me realize you can get stuck up in the moment, not take action, or you can make a decision and go hard at that decision. And somehow I chose to go hard at the decision I made and made a positive out of it, just like how you should do in whatever your situation in your life. That year, I would have never guessed that I made one sale worth $2,000. That wasn't in my playing cards, but it happened. I think the real moral of the story is that we're all gonna make mistakes in life. And because we're all gonna make mistakes, we can't be afraid of making mistakes, as they're bound to happen no matter how perfect we try to be. The key is to look at those mistakes and looking for opportunities there, as those opportunities will arise. Well, that story is always a fun one to tell, so I thought I'd throw it on YouTube as well. Rhyme time. Like I said, I'm Isaac Jarnigan. Love connecting with people. Always got stuff going on my socials and through my business, and would love to connect with you and help support your journey as well. We're all in this together. I'm not trying to sound like a know-it-all or anything. I'm just a man sharing my experiences as I grow up as well. Anyways, peace and love. Have a good day.